Hello and welcome to day 122. We are going to be looking at First Chronicles chapter 16, Psalm 106, and Matthew 19 today. So with First Chronicles, we have the beginning of regular worship happening in Jerusalem. David has brought the ark back. He has set up a tent in a space in Jerusalem. He has assigned Levites, who are the group of people that handle the worship for the people of Israel, to be in charge of worship. And we now have a regular schedule where people gather for intercession. That means praying for other people before God, praising God, giving thanks to God, offering offerings, and providing music as part of the praise and thanks. Now, after this description of getting worship going again, there's a beautiful long song to God of worship. And this is one of those things where it's easy to just kind of skip over it. But it's a beautiful piece to look through as far as a template for what does it look like for worshiping God. So we can go through here and we can be inspired in our own personal worship. As I read through this, it seems like it's a long time ago in a city far, far away. But I think this description of restarting regular worship after a period of erratic worship is something that we need to think about in our own lives. How often do we worship? Do we have a regular schedule for worship? Do we do this regularly personally? Do we gather with others on a regular basis? Do we offer praise and thanks, or is our worship just a list of intercessions? This is what I need, God. This is what the people I care about need. How do we handle our offerings? Is it something that we do when we show up at worship, or do we have a regular plan of giving something of ourselves to God's work in the world on a regular basis? As we turn to Psalm 106, we continue with this theme of worship. And this is definitely a longer psalm, but it is a great template again, showing us how to work worship into our regular lives. There's a section of confession, there's a section of praise, there's a section of history reminding us of what's gone before, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And there's a section of intercession asking for God's help. Now, Matthew 19 has a couple sections in here that are somewhat significant and often referred to. First of all, I'm really touched by how much the crowds follow Jesus. He moves from place to place, and the crowds follow him all over the place. And I don't know, how often I take time out to go follow Jesus. And so I think this is something that can really challenge and inspire us. When are we taking time to follow Jesus? Then the Pharisees give Jesus the question, is divorce okay? They're trying to test Jesus. And Jesus says, no, divorce is not okay. And the Pharisees come back and say, well, Moses says it's okay. He gave us a rule for it. And Jesus is like, that's not the point. Moses gave you that rule because of the shortcomings of humankind, our failings, our brokenness. But that's not really God's intent. God's intent is when you get married, you stay married for life. Now, he does point out that not everyone's required to get married. Some people don't feel like it. Some people don't get the opportunity to. Some people just aren't interested in it. Now, when it comes to the big debate on LGBTQ people getting married and whether it's a same gender marriage, there's a lot of people that refer to this. Well, Jesus said marriage is between a man and a woman. And yes, he does say that here. However, he's saying it in response to a question about divorce. So, first of all, I am reluctant to apply Jesus' teaching here to a homosexual wedding because that's not what Jesus is talking about. Jesus is talking about divorce. And back then, the only people who could legally get married under Roman law and Jewish law were a man and a woman. So this is not speaking to our modern time where we have marriage that legally allows same gender unions. So, I am reluctant to apply an answer about divorce to the question of homosexual marriage. There are other people that do not have that hesitation. The other thing that I want us to think about when we think about who can get married is that some people are like, well, marriage is about having kids. So you have to have a man and a woman. Well, because of modern technology, that's not entirely the case. And of course, we can always adopt children too. But the bigger thing here is that we do not have any sort of fertility testing. We do not have any sort of contractual obligations that all married couples have to have children. In fact, there's a number of married couples that are unable to have children for a variety of reasons. And we do not invalidate their weddings, their marriages, because they do not produce children. So I think as we are struggling with the issue of who can be married, um, it's easy to turn here and say, well, let's go to Jesus. But remember, this is talking about divorce, not marriage per se. And what he's referring to are the legal requirements of Roman and Jewish marriage at the time, which doesn't entirely give us a flashlight to shine light on the questions we have today. And I definitely support the expansion of marriage to be any two people that are willing to make a commitment before God and before their community to be in the union of a marriage and grow into that special type of relationship. Um, the next section, Jesus is really clear, don't get in the way of kids coming to God. It is just really easy to put kids on a different level, that they're not as important, they don't understand as much, they don't get what's going on. But Jesus makes it clear, if a kid wants to come to God, don't get in their way, let them come. These people are part of God's kingdom. And I think we can really apply that to a lot of other people, because kids in this time have no legal rights. They haven't had a lot of education. So when we think in our culture today of separating some people and not allowing them in because they don't know much, they don't act a certain way, they don't have a certain citizenship standing, none of that seems to matter to Jesus. And so we need to not only let children come to Jesus, but welcome anyone who's wanting to be in God's presence. We then get a guy who asks a question about how he can get into God's kingdom. And Jesus is like, have you been following God's rules? And he's like, yep, done, no problem. Jesus then says, sell everything you own, give it to the poor, and follow me. At this point, the guy's like, yeah, okay, maybe not so much. And he wanders off. So then the question I've been asked is, does Jesus really expect us to give everything away? Now, literally, he says that here, but we know from reading through all of the Gospels and through the New Testament that this is not a primary element of Christianity. There are many wealthy people who follow Jesus, who believe in Jesus, who use their wealth to help support Jesus and the disciples and to expand God's ministry in the world today. So it is not a literal, you have to give everything up. But I think what's really here in Jesus' message is, are you willing to give up that which is important to you? Now, for my husband and I, at one point in our married life, we prayed over what was most important to us, and it was our family at that time. And we decided to give our family for God's work and ended up getting licensed as a foster family and adopting a foster child to help bring another person up and launch them into adulthood. So I don't think Jesus necessarily wants us to go and sell everything. There are definitely some people who do feel that call, and great, go and do that. But I think the most important thing here is, are you willing to give up what's important in your life in order to follow Jesus? And I think that's a challenge and an inspiration for all of us. Jesus points out we can't really follow Jesus on our own. We need the power of the Holy Spirit. We need to give ourselves to Jesus, and we need to let Jesus lead us. So Matthew is not a terribly easy read today, but take the reading from First Chronicles to be inspired to spend time with Jesus in your life, be inspired by Jesus, and be open to whatever call Jesus has for your personal journey with Jesus, the way that you are intended to follow Jesus in your life. And it could be quite surprising what Jesus is asking of you, and it may bring great blessings to your life to give that to Jesus' work in the world today. We'll see you next time.